We are getting really close to being able to fire this thing up finally. This is going to be, I think, episode, what, 4 or 5 at this point, I forget. But the turbo E36 setup is coming along very nicely. Now in the last video, we did the M50 manifold install, and then I finished up the cold side charge piping, and then I also ran the oil feed line from Seems Legit Garage, and then the water lines from Rally Road Racing. So really all that's left, oh, I also, off camera, I did the, no, I think we did this in the last video as well, but then last night I was tinkering and I started feeding the wires. So I bought a Glow Shift dual oil pressure sensor and temperature. So I ran those because this housing has the two 1/8 MPT ports. So I started running the wires in through the firewall. There's a little grommet for the clutch reservoir line down there, so I'm just kind of feeding the wires in through there. I do have to pull my driver's seat out because my roll cage is kind of in the way. And I started placing my gauges. Now, unfortunately, my wideband doesn't fit in this piece I bought from Rally Road, so I will have my temp and pressure gauge here, boost gauge here. I'll move these around a little bit, but just gotta wire those in, which is more or less what I'm doing today, so it's not a whole lot to film. Wiring in those gauges, other than the wideband, is really simple. I'm just using ATA circuits and going to the fuse box here, so basically just need a switched 12-volt source, and I can share the power for both of those gauges, so it's not a big deal. And then the main difference from the ECU is, since I'm using the Mega Squirt, the wideband has to be grounded with the ECU, I believe, and then I have to send the analog signal. But I don't fully understand that one, which wire goes where, so I'm going to hopefully have my buddy come help me with that that's done it a few times before. But other than that, we're just buttoning things up. So let me show you really quick all that is left. So my box pile in the restroom over there has gone from like this tall to down to my last box in there, other than what we have on the table. But this is all just stuff that I'm kind of cleaning up today. So we have heat protection of 2 different sizes, wiring to extend the wire for the glow shift gauge. Since the fuse box is in the engine bay, the loom that they sent is a little short, so just wiring it. Got some heat shrink to go with the wiring, got some loom to kind of clean the wires up by the cluster for the gauges, and then more heat protection. So lots of heat protection, because obviously we still have the harness over here, so I will be putting some Tessa tape on this and then looming it or wrapping it in that high temp protective sleeve. And the Mega Squirt plug and play goes right back in the factory DME location behind this cover, so that'll be easy. But basically all that's left is I have to modify this lower port on the hose, just because I don't want to buy the whole ECS kit for the coolant lines for the poly. So I'm going to just weld on this elbow, but I'm just waiting for my straight silicone hose. But the benefit of doing this is I also have a 1/8 MPT bung that I can add on to there. And for now I'm going to cap it, but I'm going to add a water temp gauge later just to really monitor that. So it'll just make it easier for me, I should say. But we're looking good otherwise, so I have to run the vacuum lines for the wastegate and the turbo, but I did go buy a 3-port max solenoid this morning. You can buy these locally. I got this from Full Race Motorsports. They're out here in the Phoenix area. So I need to make a drain line. I need to do the vacuum lines. I need to plumb this and the T back there to the boost gauge. We also made a reservoir bracket for now, just zip tied little L bracket, but it makes it look pretty clean. Yeah, so I need to splice in the GM intake air temp sensor when it shows up in the mail. I'm waiting on all my AN lines and fittings to make my cooler lines and my drain line and my catch can lines. So really all I have left is lines, vacuum, make a catch can, and then swap the valve cover over, which I have the new one over here. This one I'm kind of taking the chance on. This is the Mint Zone one. I've heard pretty good stuff about it. I have a friend locally that drifts a E36 that's not, naturally aspirated, but they just needed a valve cover because it was cracked. They found this one on Amazon. It was like 250 bucks, 240, somewhere in that range, shipped. So I'm gonna give it a shot. The one thing that I kind of was told to do is just reuse your factory oil cap, because apparently that one just seals better. But being that this is aluminum, it should make it really easy for me to weld on those AN fittings for the catch can. And then I do have the port to plug the one on the end there, so if I need to. The only thing I did notice is the baffle that goes in here where I'm going to be putting the plugs, which is here, uses a lot of little screws. I personally don't like that, because I think the OEM plastic one uses 2 screws. In this case, I might just trace this and then just make it out of aluminum and weld it on. But these did come with a thread sealant on here, so I don't know, I'm kind of torn. I personally, because this doesn't need to be changed again, I'm probably going to end up welding something on, because I want that peace of mind that this is never going to fall off. But my buddy that's been running it has had it for like a year and a half, and they've never had a screw fall out. And I did take this off, obviously, and it did have a thread locker on it, so you should be fine. I'm just paranoid, and it's like I have the ability to weld it on, so I'm just gonna do that because for me it's easier. Well, more peace of mind. So I've got the wires all fed through and the vacuum line for the boost gauge. This is the last bit of the harness I have to feed through in this back corner over here, because the wideband is going to go, the sensor obviously on the downpipe, and then the ECU going in the factory location should allow me to run the wires for that over there, other than a power switch 12 volt, which I will tie into over here. So anyway, yeah, I don't have to go through there other than this. Now this one obviously is not very long, so I do have to extend this harness. So that's what I'm gonna do. This one plugs into the gauge up top here. So working on that bit right now. And I've got this set up. I'm not incredibly stoked on it. This one's fine. I trimmed the hole out right there so the wires go through there. And for here, the vacuum line, there's really no good way to route it. So I kind of just drilled a hole right there. And it's a little in the way for when I turn the key, but not hugely. It's more of just an eyesore. It's not really my style. The rest of the wires I just ran on the side here and put some loom in it. Everything's zip tied up high, so it should be fully out of the way of the clutch operation and all that stuff. And again, the reason the boost is up here and not the wideband is the wideband's too shallow. This is a Yugo Series 10, so this tiny little lip on there is all that was on there. So there was no efficient way to get it to clamp in these deep, you know, aluminum tubes. So I'm going to just, you know, extend these wires really quick. I'm just using some basic hand tools and some wire, 18 gauge wire from Auto Parts Store. So I'm not doing anything crazy. I am not a good wiring dude. I am using these non-insulated, you know, butt connectors and heat shrink. And, you know, I've got these tools, the little squishies. And yeah, the other thing I do have to find right now is a switch 12 volt source for these to power these gauges. I'm going to piggyback all the gauges over here. The boost gauge, the piggyback for the power is just simply for the light bulb, and then the glow shift gauges, you can piggyback those like a couple of them in a row. I've done it all this time. I've been building cars and it's fine. So yeah, then the ground, the one ground for the boost gauge is already grounded. There's like a little metal bolt tab that I didn't use under the dash, so I just put that there. This harness, because this will be inside the car, I'm going to probably run this to the same bolt location and it should be fine. Other than that, the only one I got to figure out is the constant 12 volt. So this car was an automatic. I'm going to see if I can probe those wires and see if any of them are constant with, you know, power. If they're switched, whatever. Actually, that might be an easier way. I'm going to check which one of those is switch, one of those is power, because then I don't have to extend these wires. So I'm going to do that. If I find something, I'll let you know. If I don't, next clip. Alright, so for these two gauges, well, technically three, but the two pressure sensors, the glow shift gauge and the boost gauge, I ran it off this ATA circuit here. I just trimmed the box up a little bit because this isn't a very ATA circuit friendly fuse box, and that way the wire can sit under the cover and not get pinched. I went with fuse, I want to say 46, but it's basically for the cruise control, which I don't have functioning anyway. And just to show you guys, the gauges are functioning. Cool. Now I just got to figure out how the heck to wire in or where to mount the stupid wideband. This one down here, I tried doing the crimpy thingy, but the wire off the glow shift gauge is so small it didn't actually catch in here, so I had to use the T-tap style instead of whatever that one is. So ignore the ugly. Just sometimes, you know, stuff happens. Like 5.5 hours later, we got the gauges all wired in. The only thing that's missing is I still have to run the harness for the sensor to the wideband and then plumb the two wires to the ECU. But I'm gonna wait for a buddy to help me with that so I don't mess it up, because I don't fully understand how to do it, and I still gotta figure out a map reference for the ECU since the map sensor is built in, and like trying to figure out where my fitting is, whatever. But for the wideband, made my own little bracket and just screwed it in up here. Mostly because I didn't feel like spending 10 bucks on a plastic one that was too deep anyway. So some sheet aluminum and probably about 35 minutes. Looks halfway decent. Not too bad. Okay, so day 2 of this video. Today I don't have a whole lot while I'm still waiting on my injectors and my oil lines and fittings. I do have to take the exhaust off to change that valve cover because I need to pull my downpipe, and the way I assembled it, it should be pretty quick and easy, but inconvenient that the downpipe has to come off. So it's alright, I have to add a hanger to this anyway. I ran out of gas the other night when I was welding it. So no harm, no foul. Pull the exhaust, do the valve cover, And then I do have to pull the intake manifold back off because I realized I need a direct vacuum source reference for the ECU's map sensor. So because of that, I got to pull the intake, drill and tap a 1/8 MPT. I do have some spare fittings, I believe, from my blow-off valve that I can use in that, and then that's all good to go. And then I just got to get a couple feet of vacuum line to run the blow-off valve and the ECU. So that'll be easy, especially since I don't have the fuel stuff hooked up, no injectors, no lines on the manifold. I just got like the one vacuum line right now, and then the hardware and the throttle body. So with pulling the throttle body off, though, I do have to pull the charge pipe because I am using a GM intake air temp sensor, which should be here Friday. Today's Thursday or Saturday, and it should whatever. But I got to weld in this 3/8 MPT bung, so kind of like unfortunate, unnecessary evil type stuff where I have to like pull all this stuff off to add stuff, but it's fine. Oh, and I got my radiator hose, so I can modify that today too. So more small stuff. This really is the worst of it. Like the last little bit of stuff where it's like all these little things just add up. It takes just as much time as doing like all the big stuff put together. Like it's kind of ridiculous. But anyways, yeah, let's pull this exhaust off and get started being productive, or attempting to. All right, radiator is modified. It's going to be a little bit of a bear to get this hose on, but the hose at least fits. That was my concern since this water housing looks bigger than it is. But we're good. So I'm gonna let that cool off, install that up really quick. Gotta find a new hose clamp for right here because this one decided to not want to tighten down all the way. But other than that, we're looking good. Guess while the radiator's cooling off, I'm gonna pull the charge pipe really quick so I can prep to pull the manifold. That's really easy, just 2 clamps, top, bottom. Blow-off valve can more or less stay where it's at. But yeah, cool. Moving along nicely. Got this drilled out, got the 2 fittings added on, and then I also just added a Rivnut to this L bracket for the dipstick because the little clip that they send you is just really annoying to work with. So it should be good. I tried blowing this out. Hopefully there's no plastic shavings in there, and if there is, it should just get burned up right away anyway once the engine sucks it in. But yeah, if these leak, I'm really hoping they don't. I did put Teflon tape and stuff on there, but if they do, then this is just one of those spots where you are probably gonna have to just use some JB weld. But once I fire the car up, I'll obviously spray for some vacuum leaks, but we'll see. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on now. I did freaking mess up. I didn't even stop to think with the radiator that I can't install this because this contacts the cylinder head. So now I have to cut that back off, re-weld it back to normal, put a bead roll on it, and then order the silicone hose kit for the upper and the lower, unfortunately. Which sucks. I didn't want to spend any more money on this stupid car, and mostly I didn't want the OE style lower because it puts it close to the wastegate. But hopefully being silicone, it'll hold up a lot longer, and the whole reason I wanted the aluminum is because it wasn't going to get damaged from the heat over here, because the top of the wastegate still gets hot. Not as much as the the part with the blanket on it, but I don't know. Sucks a lot, but is what it is. Manifold, everything else is good. Actually, somehow ended up getting the radiator in by taking the lower mounts off. I finally got those broken out and put on, so now the radiator fits. It's just going to be not fun to uninstall it, but I just got to get the hose clamps on, and then this thing's all done. And this fucking sensor, whatever. But other than that, I'm about to weld the AN fittings on the valve cover and see what this Chinese valve cover welds like. Bungs welded on surprisingly nice. I mean, given it is still a cast aluminum, so of course there's going to be some grit in it, but overall it was not bad. So let this cool off, and in the meantime, start pulling this valve cover off and get them swapped over and double check the head stud torque while I'm in there, and hopefully, I pray that it's all good still. I'm not leaking. I just pray they don't fucking snap or something, because that's my luck today, but we'll find out. All right, so thread lock, high strength, red. Baffles back on. Go ahead and install this. Alright, so thankfully the retorque went good. I was very anxious about that, but we're good. I put this oil baffle thing, I don't even know what it would be called, but I put that back on, so I'm just putting some new valve cover gaskets in, reusing the OEM one since it was decent. This time I'm putting the RTV, the Honda Bond in particular, on the crescent side, since I was having a little bit of weeping over there this past time I installed it. So I think it's just one of those quirky spots, like on a Civic, you got to do it around the cam caps and stuff. Same thing. So gonna reassemble this and we'll be good to go, other than oil lines. Fittings have showed up. Still feeling a bit under the weather, so bear with me here. But we have a box full of fittings. I bought a couple extra. They were cheap enough where it's like, yeah, I wanted some options for some of the styles. And then I think I got like either 15 or 20 foot of nylon rubber hose here. And you want to use the rubber with oils because the PTFE stuff isn't really rated for oils and stuff. You want to use that for more like ethanol lines, fuel lines, but you want rubber lines for like normal oils and stuff. So with this, I'm just going to start mocking stuff up, and as I figure it out, I'll show you, because AM lines are pretty easy to build if you've never built them. You know, top screws apart like that. Usually these end pieces where the hose actually goes into, they're usually left-hand thread, but you know, makes it easy for assembly. We'll do one together once I get things more or less routed, so we'll figure it out. Alright, so I got my length cut out. You can use an angle grinder, or you can go to like Home Depot or, you know, Harbor Freight. I don't even know what this tool is called, but whatever this thing would be that you can cut some branches with, this works really good. This one's specifically Mishimoto, but they just did, you know, they just put their sticker on a tool. But those work really well for cutting this type of hose. Again, this is the nylon, not the stainless steel. I don't know if it cuts the stainless steel ones too well. So you can see I've already got the fitting on this end just to make sure it was going to go on easily. But what we're doing here is, again, showing you how to assemble these things. Now, you're going to take your fitting, and you have the two halves. So this is obviously the half that attaches to whatever your bung is, your AN, and this is the half that we want in this moment. So, get a focus on there. Yeah, this bung right here. So it's hard to see, especially because the blackness of it on the camera, but this has threads on the inside. Now obviously the threads that this screws onto, but threads deeper. So that is what we want right now. Usually these are left-hand thread, but it's about as simple as just getting it on there, just like that. Try and avoid fraying things, and then you just push hard and rotate until it bottoms out. So you'll know it bottoms out because there's like a ledge right before the actual threads, and you just push it in until it hits those. Alright, and you can't see in there, but take my word for it, it's bottomed out. Alright, so what you do next is you want to take yourself, get a little bit of motor oil or equivalent, and then you're just going to want to put some oil on this fitting right here. This is the part that's going to be threading into the hose, and you want it to be lubricated. So just get a dab on there. That way it slides nicely into the hose. Simply push it in and start threading. Alright, there we go. It's all made up. Nice. Now we just gotta put the fitting on the other end. In this case, I'm doing a 90. This one's going to the cooler, and we'll be good to go. Got another quick update for you guys. So it is the following day. Again, each day it's like one piece rolls in at a time for this last little bit. So yesterday or last night, the fuel injectors showed up. Right now, I am going to be running these Dtworks 650cc injectors, so they plumbed right in. Again, with the M50 manifold swap, we have these little adapters, so that's why it looks a little funky. So that's all good. Injector clips plugged right in. The injectors went right in, so that's nice and easy. Also, my GM intake air temp sensor showed up, and I did buy it with the pigtail, so I have the connector. Now I just got to figure out where to wire it. I'm waiting on a response because I don't know if on this setup you would either splice it into the factory air sensor harness, which is also a 2-pin, or if you would splice it into the mass airflow connector, because I don't really understand which one. This is my first mass airflow sensor car other than my Miata, but that went on a Mega Square pretty quick. So short term, just trying to figure this out. But once I know, I will let you guys know. I didn't make mention of it in the M50 manifold swap video. Maybe it's case by case, but I just finished plugging the rail in because I forgot the fuel lines. My fuel hard lines were like touching this last runner on the bottom side on the, I believe, the feed line. So I just took a wrench and lightly bent it just far enough away to get the line on. So that's good. Moving on to mounting the MAC valve, because still feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm just trying to knock out the easier stuff first and let the Red Bull kick in. So I like this location here on this little screw, because everything this is going to be pretty much right here. So wastegate, I got some 90-degree fittings coming. So it's going to be basically from the compressor to here, and, or wait, no, I think here to here, and then here tee off to compressor. So whatever it is, this is just a nice short run, so everything should be good. I'm going to just trim off this little stud because I don't know where the screw went for it, and then drill that hole, and then just put a Rivnut there. Okay, got it spliced in there, should be good to go. I'm gonna just put some loom over it just to clean it up a little bit. I got some tested tape already, so I'll just probably wrap it in that and we'll be good. So this is my first time bending hardline to make a drain, to make anything. So starting off, we're using a Vever tube bender, rod bender, pipe bender, whatever you want to call it. It's not like my normal tube bender for bending cages. So technically this is a pipe bender. So I kind of just didn't know what to expect. It crushes it just a tiny bit, but not much. So that's still going to be plenty of flow. Basically this end is going to get a flared, basically nut, whatever they're called, to a -10. And then the other end, wherever that ends up being, I will weld a stainless -10 bung on there. And then I'll make a drain line, or AN line to go from this piece to the pan. So this actually bent pretty easy. It does take a little bit of force. This is thicker wall. This is 049 or 49 thousandths. But this little bender just made quick work of it. I just had to brace it here and then pull it with my other hand, and I'm gonna just kind of get a rough measurement where I need to go from here. This is just to get me off the turbo, so it's gonna kind of 90-ish off the turbo like that, and then I'm gonna have to probably kick it, you know, back, but it's really tight under there, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and once I figure it out, I will show you. Okay, so unfortunately, even with messing with it a few different ways, the bend radius is too, you know, long. I think it's like a 1.5D die, which basically means it's like a long radius, it's not tight. So the only way to do this, because I tried also AN fittings, and I don't have what I think would work is a 60-degree fitting, but even then I really don't want to be running AN lines until I'm away from the hot zone. So I'm just making some pie cuts. Some little tiny baby pie cuts to make this thing fit. Now, it'll work just fine. It'll still flow. It's just a tight radius bend, but it'll still flow just fine. It's just not easy to build. So we have our flare fitting in here, obviously pre-flared. That worked out pretty well. Thankfully, the tool I was using was this one that I borrowed from my buddy. This is made by Rigid, so I believe you can get this at Home Depot. It's got a nice system set up, so for somebody like me that's really new to this, all you gotta do is turn the handle and then a valve will pop out of here, and then it's done. You can't tighten it anymore. It's flared. Easy. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish kind of planning this out, routing it, and then I will show you the finished product. Well, here's the finished product for the upper portion. So obviously this will go on the turbo side. This is where the AN line is going to start, and then I think the angle of that should allow me to just use a straight and then probably go into a 90 off into the pan, so it'll be tilted downward like that. So it should be good. Letting this thing cool off really quick, I'll make this lower line, and then after that, probably just wrap this video up. I will plumb the wastegate and wire these two things after the fact, and let you guys know how that goes. And then the next video we'll actually be able to start it. It's gonna be really hard to show you, but here's the start of the drain line up here, and then it comes down, and you can see it like blends with the wastegate here up there, and then connects to the AN fitting, and then the AN line runs down into the oil pan right here. Alright, so it is the final day before, you know, I end this video off. I just wanted to make a last note. I was going to end the video last night, but then I came down and worked on it today. So I got the wastegate plumbed up with the boost controller. So basically the diagram that I found that I always refer to is off of Full Race's website. So essentially off of your boost source, which is your compressor, you're going to put the T and you're going to go to the bottom of your wastegate. If you have top and bottom port, and then you can go to port 1 on your 3-port solenoid, and then obviously go from port 2, and that runs to the top of the wastegate. So that's plumbed up, and to wire it, this has no polarity, at least on the Mac branded Mac valve. So one just goes to a switch 12-volt source. I just went to the fuse box with an ATA circuit, which I powered my gauges with. You can piggyback them. So that, and then the reference signal for this, in mine, sorry, still sick. In mine, I'm using Megasquirt, so it's really confusing. But on the Megasquirt, on your auxiliary cable, which is the extra cable on the back that you can add ports into, so they want you to go to port number 1. It's going to be like high input, basically, something like that. So you have pin 1 and 2, you can put it to either of those. And then for the wideband, that was the hard part. I'm not 100% certain if it's correct, but we will find out once we come to the next video with the tuning. So essentially, your red and black wire, normal power ground, chassis ground that is, and then you're going to have your blue wire, don't use it, white, green, whatever, those are for AEM, so don't worry about those, tie those out of the way. So you're going to worry about the white and the brown. Now I ran it all through in here and stuff, and it's plugged in already. So the basically one's going to be auxiliary input and then auxiliary output, basically. So on this ECU, on the MS3 PNP Pro, there's going to be a port that says EGO. You're going to want to put your white wire to that, and what I believe may be correct, but I'm kind of iffy on, is the brown wire. Now there's going to be pin number 20. It says sensor output or sensor something like that, and or sensor return. And from what I was told and from what I can kind of understand through the reading of all the diagrams, because there's no actual instructions for this, is that's one you got to go to. Now I'm going to run with that. If it doesn't work, I'll let you know in the the next video with the ECU stuff and firing it up. But I'm going to end this video off here. I am way over working on this car. I'm finishing up the catch can right now as we speak. Just a simple, circular one with a drain, 3 bungs, 2 for input, 1 for vent / whatever, and I'm going to put a filter up top. So just tuck it here in the corner just for now. Anyways, guys, thanks for spending some time out of your day here with me. I know this video was a little bit more on the boring side because it was more of just updating as I went along than showing. Just trying to get this stuff cracked out because I do have customer cars I got to get to, and I'm just working in my free time. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And I'm going to go home, take some NyQuil, pass out. So do what you love, feel good with the rest. Hopefully we feel better in the next one. We'll see ya.